order to receive a blessing from his father. Now, some of you have heard me say this for years, because God gave me that revelation when I wrote this song, Jacob's Dream. Jacob dresses himself up like his brother to receive a blessing from his father. Think about how funny that is. Because we do it in the church all the time, in our worship, in our preaching, in our style, in our religion. We dress ourselves up thinking that there's a blessing that's on some sort of form. And God says, my blessing's never on the form, and my word's never speaking through the form. Because once it's become a form, man has his hand on it, and the fire's gone from it. I speak through fire. In the middle of that broken place in your heart, that's where I'm speaking. In the middle of that place where I have disrupted all of your plans, and all of your dreams, and all of your vision, and everything that you think you want to do, in the middle of all of that, I'm speaking. In the midst of the silence, I'm speaking. And I'm calling your name, and I'm not calling you what man has named you. I'm calling you what I named you. And the inner parts of who you are knows what I named you. And when you hear me speak that name, you go, whoa, I feel the blessing. Jacob runs after, unsatisfied, runs after deceiving everyone he can deceive in order to receive a blessing from his father. And this is the sad thing about this, guys. He wasn't satisfied. Why wasn't he satisfied? Because he dressed himself up like his brother, walks into his dad's den, goes up to his bed, and his dad blesses him, thinking that he's his brother. That's like me with Emma. And me being blinded, and Emma comes in and deceives me and tells me, you know what I mean? My daughter Emma says that she's Samuel. And I say, oh, since you're Samuel, I guess I'll bless you. And then I bless her, and I call her Samuel, and I bless her, and I say, oh, I got it. I mean, Emma says, oh, I got it. Like she's going to walk out of the room feeling good. I never even called her name. And he wasn't satisfied. And you won't be satisfied either until you hear heaven call your name. This is what God has to get through to us as a church. We have to hear the Father call our name. The Father spoke to me a few months ago and said, I want you to begin to give opportunity in the worship for me to call their names. And so that's what we're going to do. The whole rest of the weekend, we're going to give opportunity after opportunity in the worship for God to call your name. Actually, he is calling your name. It's more for us to hear it. It's crazy. My mind is always being renewed. Because I've got that devil knows my name more than God does. And so do you. So does the American church. God knows our name. See, Jesus was the new Adam. And so there he is in a line with sinners, and before he ever does a miracle, before he ever feeds the 5,000 or the 4,000 or raises the dead, he hears the voice of his Father say, this is my beloved Son, and I'm pleased with you. I think it's interesting that in that passage, we were talking about it last week, it's interesting in that passage that it said that Jesus looked up and the heavens were open. Because I had always thought of that as a public scene. How about you? I always thought of it as, I'm waiting, God, for me to be on the platform and for you to rip open the heavens and scream down my name and tell everybody that I'm your beloved. But with Jesus, there's no indication that that's the way it was. It says that Jesus looked up and he saw his Father. And that's all that Jesus needed. For you to hear the whisper in the wind and the whisper of the Father and to know that he's calling your name. You know how we get that? We test it over and over and over again. Did I really hear it? Well, try me. Because you'll never find me dependable unless you depend on me. And you'll never know if you heard my word unless you start trusting like you did hear my word. Just try me. You're okay. You want to play at something? You want to have fun? Play Because I'm real. This is so powerful. Jesus is the new Adam. So here Adam is, and he's spoken over the blessing. Jacob isn't satisfied. Jesus comes, and really all of Israel was never satisfied. Ever. They could walk with God, and God was there, and God could come here tonight, and we would still not be satisfied. Healings could happen, and within a couple weeks, we wouldn't be satisfied. We'd rather have kings. We say we want fathers, but we really like dictators. You know why? Because dictators make better heroes. We can't handle it when a real father comes into our life and starts really loving us. Because when they really love us, they really expose themselves to us, and then they can no longer necessarily be the hero in the way that we want it. And Jesus comes, and his disciples reject him at the cross. He was no CEO, guys. This was Jesus. This was Jesus. None of his disciples even made the cross, except one. But Jesus was the new Adam, and you know what made him so powerful? He knew the blessing of his Father, but that wasn't it. It was that he was satisfied with that approval. Jesus, early on, guys, realized that man would go like this. So he never trusted man's words. Whether they're religious, whether they were holy, whether they were praising him, he never trusted man's words. You know why? Because he knew they were going to go like this. And they did go like this, didn't they? But if we want to make it the long haul in anything, if you want to make it the long haul in loving somebody that's going to reject you over and over and over again, then you can't depend on man's words of blessing. If you want to make it a long haul in the same direction of obedience, in a direction that God's really calling you to, guys, we cannot do it. We cannot be forerunners in the Spirit and be depending on man to approve of us. Because the longer you live, the longer Jesus' life was on earth, the longer Paul's life was on earth, the longer the disciples lived on earth. Oh yeah, when they were doing miracles, when Jesus was doing miracles, no problem. Everybody loved him. When he started calling to account and calling people to come follow the kingdom and calling people to love, that's when everybody said, whoa, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? This is what God's calling us to in this time. Right now. There's a new generation arising, a nameless, faceless, placeless tribe. You don't care about your name. Somebody got really upset at me for saying that. That's ridiculous. We're a holy generation, a royal priesthood, people after God's own name and heart and blah, blah, blah. Isn't it in the Bible? God helps those that help themselves. You know what I mean? And where is that in the Bible? You know what I mean? And as long as you have a consciousness of being a blessed people, you will be filled with poverty. You'll be spiritually poor. And I'm not talking about a good spiritual poor. I mean, you're going to be devastated with poverty. You'll never be satisfied, and you will be strung along by the way of the world and by the way of the church. And God says, I want a people that are willing to be satisfied with my voice and hear my voice. And blessed are those that hunger and thirst for that approval, that's what satisfies you, and that's all that satisfies you. This is eternal life, that you know the Father. So Jesus said, today if you hear his voice and do not harden your hearts, what? You will hear his voice. So don't harden your heart to it, because it's calling you. But we do harden our hearts. Why? Because his voice doesn't matter to us as much as man's voice does. That's reality. And we have to deal with that, guys, before we can really turn that corner and be able to love.